the areas which are pretty much near to your lips. I think someone has any doubt. Any doubt? I hear some noise. Okay, I think not. I'll
Good
be.
morning, hello, participants. Any participants have any doubt or question?
Okay, sorry.
Please
I
hand
think I hear something, so that's why some beep kind of things. I thought. Hmm. Yeah. So we are talking about adaptive selection. So what happened is few of those regions which are pretty much quite near to your lip regions, and if a person is smiling, then those would be affected. So what we do is in adaptive selection, amongst these temporal signals, we select those that are least affected by facial expressions or by these variations. Thereafter, whatever remaining temporal signals we have, we somehow try to extract out the pulse out of it. Again, these question marks are those things that we are going to see, but let's first of all look at a broader picture and then we will go for each of these step one by one. From all those signals, we extract out the pulse information, pulse extraction. Then, from this pulse extraction, we analyze our spectrum and, or let's say, figure it out our heart rate. How, again, we are going to see in the upcoming slide. And then, this is my heart rate estimate. So, for the next window I consider, I again get my heart rate and so on. So, for one phase video, I'm going to get several heart rate estimates across time, and we call it heart rate monitoring. So our output here would be a sequence of heart rates. So now let's look at each of the steps one by one. Our first step is ROI detection and then temporal signal extraction. So with this to this, I need to go. So here it is. This is my first frame. Using this first frame, I want to extract out my this kind of mask. So what it tells wherever we have white, it says that yes, kindly consider this area. If you have black, don't consider it. So anyone wants to try how I can how I can reach from here to here, from A input frame to this output binary mask. Can anyone tell me? Anyone wants to try this? That how it can be performed? Okay. Well, the first step is I apply a deep learning based pre-trained model. The model that I have used or the library that I have used is OpenFace, though there are lots and lots of libraries right now, Chehra, Face, and so on. All these different libraries we have. Mainly, I'm working on OpenFace, so I just apply the pre-trained network from there, and it provides me the not only it localize the facial region, but it also provides me these landmark points, which actually provides me the outline of different facial regions. Even we have this mouth as well, but I haven't shown it because actually my main focus here is on this boundaries, these facial boundaries, and these eye areas and these nodes that I want. So this is my first step. My second step is I also apply a state-of-the-art skin detector model, and I get this kind of skin region. After this, what I do, I somehow want to reach from B and want to use B and C to reach to this final image. So for that, what I have done is I first smoothen up this C image by using some morphological operation. If you look closely, these two are quite similar. Only thing is there is this eye region and we don't want to remove that. So what I have done is I just find out this eye region. I mean these green landmark points provide me that region. So I just join them and get this. So overall this operation is known as convex hull. So I find out the convex hull, remove that area, then combine them to get my output. That's it. And this is not actually restricted. There are multiple ways by which people are using different region of interest. Some people are using cheek regions and so on. Again, as we proceed, we will see what people have done. But if you can somehow get a very good region of interest and a stable region of interest, most of your problem will be solved. Now, after that, as we have said, what we want is we want to have these region of interest. There is this one image that I have. Now, after that, what we have done is we divided into non-overlapping square blocks. And with whatever square blocks which does not contain any black region, we consider them as our one ROI. Then from this ROI, we need to extract our temporal signal. Okay, any questions? Okay, so
Abhijit has raised.
yeah,
Abhijit,
please. Yep. So what's the question?
Abhijit, can you ask?
Abhijit,
Abhijit,
any? Yeah, please.
do you have any doubt, Abhijit? I think my mistake, he raised the hand.
Okay. Yeah. So we have said that now we have multiple ROIs. From each of this ROI, we want to extract one temporal signal. So what can be done is you take up this location, put it on the first frame. Let's say here. Then you find out the color in it. What you can do, there are again multiple ways. In my case, what I have used is I have just used the green channel because in literature it is proved that it provides the strongest PPG signal. So again, there are lots of reasons for that. Uh, so what I have done is, let's say in this block, or this block contains 8 cross 8 pixels, 8 cross 8 regions. So I put it here and just analyze the green values. So I am going to have 8 cross 8 values. So I just take up their average. Their average is going to be just one value. Corresponding to first frame, I get one value. Then I take up second frame, again put this arrow, I get my second value. And that's how, if let's say you have 300 frames, you get 300 values, and that represents your one signal. So corresponding to this one ROI, I get one signal. Similarly, I take up next one, next one, next one, and for corresponding to all the region of interest that I have, I get one temporal signal. Now, after temporal signal extraction, if you look closely, again, I think if you look closely, we have reached from here to here, and then from here, how we can extract out our temporal signal. Then our next phase is adaptive selection. So what we are going to do here is, few of these temporal signals might be affected by expressions or some variations, some facial variations, facial deformations. So is it possible that out of these signals, we can just select few of those signals that are least affected by them? So this is the aim of this adaptive selection. And then pulse extraction. So just to have this thing in mind, to satisfy our this aim, let's visualize this thing. We have these four temporal signals. Now you have the option to select two of them. So which one will you pick and why? Yep. Anyone wants to suggest which one I should pick and why? Okay, once again, I'm looking at, I mean, my case is just looking at this, that whatever variations we are going to have, they are quite subtle. And again, they are going to be they contain some pulse signal, so they probably will be somewhat periodic. However, if it is affected by facial expression for, let's say, for some time, then there are going to be high variations in it. Now, can anyone suggest which one should I pick and which one should I avoid? Okay, so again, look closely. These signals in blue, their range are quite small. The change of range is quite small. However, in this case, our range is quite high. And again, this is high just for very small duration. So maybe there is some person who is laughing or some deformation has happened, due to which there is large deformation. So this might indicate, these red signals, that there are some problems, these facial deformations. So you want to capture this thing. So for that, what we have done is So this is what we want. Adaptive selection here, selecting few of these temporal signals, neglecting few of them. So what we have done is, as our intuition is that due to this what happened, this range somewhat gets increased and there is going to be a high standard deviation. So what standard deviation is, it just provides you the spread across the mean. So let's say if your mean is like that, here your mean is quite high. Again, range is also quite high. However, in this case, everything lies in a very small compact manner. So their standard deviation is quite small. What we have done is we define something known as C. For ith signal, we define it like Ci, confidence. So which is nothing but standard deviation divided by mean. So it provides, if my standard deviation is high, like in this case, so it provides me that yes, I am pretty much, I mean, I am highly confident that it is affected by facial deformation. So I just neglect those 20% of the temporal signals which have high Ci values, and rest 80% I consider. So again, in the, I mean, pretty soon I'm going to show a demo video that yeah, it works and what kind of temporal signals or areas it actually mitigates. But yeah, so these 80% temporal signals I am left with. Using these 80% temporal signals, somehow I need to figure out my pulse signal. So that's my next step, extracting the pulse signal. Before understanding what exactly now I'm going to do, let's see what are my temporal signals. My temporal signals, each of my temporal signals contains pulse signal as well as some noise. And this noise mainly depends on our facial structure, user characteristics, and environmental settings. Right. So probably before moving forward, let's see this problem, because both these problems are quite same or similar in nature. So here we have multiple sources. This actually something corresponds to something known as BSS, blind source separation. So here there are multiple sources. One of the thing is there that we want, and rest other are noise. So let's say one is my pulse signal, let's say this car, and other are my noises due to various reasons. Then what happened is we have different ROIs, region of interest. Each of this region of interest contains my pulse signal along with some component of different noises. So this is what I get here. So these are my temporal signals. Now what I want is I want to decompose my temporal signals into these things. Into what kind of input we have. Again, your pulse and different noise things. So this is what actually I want. And this problem actually, as I was saying, corresponds to something known as blind source separation, where what happened is, let's say you have noise. I mean, in audio, it is extensively explored. So these noise can be due to various of these reasons. There is this children noise, a person is playing piano, there is mobile noise, there is car noise, all these things are there. And there are different receivers placed at different locations, which all get these things as a mixture. What kind of mixture? We don't know actually. How? Probably in this pulse signal is quite high. I mean, this noise is quite high. These are quite small. However, in this person speaking noise is quite high. Others are quite small. So these kind of mixtures we have. And our problem is how can we decompose these mixtures into their original sources? So that's blind source separation. So this kind of technique I'm going to use. Again, due to time constraint, I'm not moving or I'm not going to explain much about this blind source separation, but hopefully most of you have already seen few of these blind source separation techniques. I think the most prominent one is PCA, principal component analysis. Likewise, there are lots and lots of BSS techniques like ICA, independent component analysis. So as I was saying, this is what blind source separation technique is. We want to decompose our this observed signal into their input sources. Something like in our case, we want to decompose our temporal signal into pulse signal and noise. So now let's assume that yes, we have lots of temporal signals. We decompose it into several signals. One of them is my pulse noise and another one are noise. So how I can detect which one is pulse signal and which are noises? To answer this question, let's first look at these two signals. So we have, let's say we got these two signals after decomposition. Which of these two signals you can, I mean, in your opinion, will probably, or you can say most probably belong to pulse signal, and why? Can anyone tell me? Anyone wants to try?
First one,
Excellent. First one. The reason? The reason?
it is periodic in nature. We
Definitely.
can say that some.
Perfect. That's
Yes.
the valid and perfect reason. So it has high
Thank you so
periodicity.
much.
Like, perfect. So it is going up and then going down in a very contiguous kind of manner. So it has even good periodicity. So what periodicity means? So what you can do is you can convert into frequency domain, find out your spectrum, and then what you will see is at one frequency you have high value, while at all other frequencies you are going to have pretty much low values. So like here you have this high value, so this is highly periodic. Others are quite small. While in this, it's a wavy kind of, I mean, its spectrum is pretty much wavy. It composed of lots and lots of frequency components in it, and it's not that much periodic. So these are the two things that researchers have extensively used for extracting the pulse signal. First one is BSS, blind source separation. Second one is the periodicity. In my case, actually, I have also proposed something known as MUK algorithm, multi-kurtosis optimization algorithm, which simultaneously minimizes both these things to provide me the pulse signal. But yeah, intuitively, these are the two things that people are actually working on to extract the PPG signal. Few more cases we will see. As I am saying, just after this, we will see few more good examples that people have used. Now, our last step. Once you have this pulse signal, you find out, okay, this is the pulse signal. How you can find out the heart rate from it? Well, to understand it, again, I know most of you knows this thing that frequency, what frequency domain is, but so that we all are on the same page, let's see what do we mean to find out the spectrum. What do we mean to convert a signal into frequency transform? So in a very simple words, what it is, we have one signal with us, shown in red. This is my input signal. Now what I do is I just decompose this signal into different frequencies. So here are my three frequencies shown in this blue, green, and purple color. So once we decompose it, we get these amplitudes of it. So what does it mean? It means here we have this amplitude, here we have this frequency. When you multiply this to this, multiply this amplitude of with this one, multiply this amplitude of purple with purple wave, and we add all three of them, the output resultant we add, then we are going to get up this red wave. This is what frequency transform is. Again, this is going to be an approximate one. So whatever output we are going to get, it is pretty much similar to this red looking wave, our input wave. So this is what frequency spectrum is. So we have this red wave, we decompose it into different frequencies. Decompose that means what is the amplitude of this blue wave in this, what is the amplitude of this green wave in this, what is the amplitude of this purple wave in this. So this is my spectrum. So this is what we do. Our first step is we have this pulse extraction, we decompose it into frequencies using FFT. So what it means, we have these different frequencies. These different frequencies will range from some 42 hertz to 240 hertz. Again, usually our heartbeat in the range of 42 to 240 hertz, right? So correspondingly, we find out our frequencies. We analyze this signal into those frequencies, something like this. We decompose our this signal into these different frequency components, and we get this kind of output. So wherever we have this highest amplitude, we take up this frequency, corresponding frequency, and multiply it with 60. Reason, heart rate, at the very first, I define it the number of times your heartbeat per 60 seconds. And this frequency, what it tells you in 1 second. It analyzes something in seconds. So that's why we first decompose it into our spectrum, find out at what frequency I get the maximum amplitude, then I take up that frequency and multiply it with 60, and that is my heart rate. Right? There is one more operation actually that I have performed. As I was saying, that I just only want to analyze the frequency at some particular range. The range is 42 divided by 60 and 240 divided by 60, which roughly comes up like 0.07 to 4 hertz. Right? So only this frequency range I want to analyze. However, my signal contains the signal beyond these frequencies as well. What I do is I also apply something known as band pass filtering. So again, what band pass filtering is, again a combination of something low pass and high pass filtering. So see here this is what band pass filtering is. You have different frequencies. These are the amplitudes. Then what you do, you apply some band pass filtering. Let's say the band pass filtering provides that, okay, what frequency range I want to analyze. Assume that the whatever frequency range I want to analyze, W1 and W3 don't lie in that. That means whatever output that I'm going to get, it does not contain W1 and W3. So this is what I'm going to get. So in very simple words, this is what band pass filtering is. So I hope now this will all make sense. From pulse extraction, how we can find out the heart rate. Any doubt till this point? Till this point, whatever steps we have actually covered, any of the step, if you find that yeah, there is problem, we can go through with that. Because all these steps, we will see that how we can actually make it much more better. Only difference lies in this, I mean in different approaches is in handling these approaches differently, that's it. In some different ordering or some different ways. But this is how everything is performed. So that's why this basic is clear. If you have any doubt, please ask me a question.
Any doubt from the participants?
Okay then. So I think now we can proceed. But now do remember all these things, because whatever papers, different papers and different mechanisms we are going to see, or different research directions we are going to see, only these things are changed slightly, that's it. So all of these things started in 2010. There what happened is, we have again phase videos. Phase is detected using Wheeler-Jones detector. Then for all this phase, you take up this red channel, green channel and blue channel separately, average them and get first value. Then take up the second frame, average them, get the second value. And that's how you get one temporal signal out of it. For red, then for green, then for blue. Then you perform ICA as a blind source separation and you get the output. Now you can very well imagine that there are lots and lots of problems with this approach. And there are various ways by which you can modify it. Like probably you should avoid this eye blink. I mean, there can be eye blinking, so eye artifacts can be there. You can use better blind source separation. There is no periodicity used here. All those things are there. So that's why these things starts to emerge. So now the first thing was ROI was not that good. So there is this paper in 2017. There they have shown that this kind of heart rate can be used for fitness videos. But there what they have done is, the authors have actually used this ROI detection, only cheek regions they have used. Rest, everything looks pretty much the same. So they perform this they find out R trace, G trace and B trace, just like in the previous approach. Then rather than applying ICA, they just simply linearly combine them as an average out of them and get the pre-processed PPG signal. Again, since we have already gone through a lot of these things, how we can modify it, we can go ahead and modify modify these things in different ways. Now, probably most of the stuff we know, only these three approaches I am covering, because first one is basically the way by which everything gets started. Second one shows that yes, we can use it for exercise monitoring, and there is this third approach which is slightly different from what we have seen. So this is not a Eulerian approach, this is a Lagrangian approach, and that's why I'm actually covering this. And again, it do provides a totally altogether different direction. So that's why I'm actually covering that up. Different direction does not mean that all those things, those general framework, they won't be applied. Everything would be the same, but it just provides how you should extract the temporal signals in case of Lagrangian. So here once again, authors, they apply Euler-Jones phase detector, find out the phase region, then apply some constraints to remove these these facial boundaries. And they also remove eye regions, only consider these regions, this one and this one. In that, they apply Lucas-Kennedy tracker to find out the discriminatory feature points. And then they track how these points are moving across frames. Moving in the y direction only. Why? Again, we have seen that in Lagrangian approach, we are mainly concerned about the motion in y direction. Because again, our carotid arteries forces that our force to go up. Our face forces, due to this Newton's third law, there is equal and opposite reaction. So our face, in order to be in the state of rest, it exerts a downward motion. So there is this motion in y direction only due to this third thing. Yeah, one more thing here. However, if you look for, let's say, as I was saying, the similar approach, you can also use it for respiration rate. In that case, don't use y direction. There it's best, in order to get the best performing result, probably you should look for x direction. So yeah, in our case, we just analyze this y direction. Temporal signals are extracted. After that, most of those things would remain the same. You have this temporal signals, you apply some bandpass filtering over it, then apply blind source separation, let's say principal component analysis. Then you get different sources out of it. Which source you should pick? Well, in order to do that, they use periodicity. They convert the signal into frequency transform, see which one is highly periodic, and they said, okay, whichever is highest periodic, they assign that, yes, this is my pulse signal. This is another approach. Now, there are actually various ways to improve the efficacy of this system. Various directions that people can explore. Again, by this whatever journal framework that I have present, hopefully this is clear that what those steps can be. First one is look for better ROI selection, expression invariant regions. Like in this case, some people have just analyzed cheek regions. There are different regions that people can use. Another one is this even ROI shifting. Whenever there is this motion or some person is thinking, wherever something happens, there is ROI shifting. So what you can also do is you can also somewhat perform something known as phase registration before extracting the temporal signal. But always be cautious, because even over the state of the art facial recognition system that we have used, when we apply that, it starts to provide us erroneous results. Our efficacy decreases. Again, reason we will see. I have a video demo to show that. There we will revisit this thing. After that, from each ROI, you need to extract your temporal signals. Like in previous case, I just used average green channel. People have used R, G, and B trace. And there are various other color mixing techniques that people can use. One can use hue, or you can use YCBCR space. So all these things are actually explored. And even just on this thing, that how you can mix the color, lots of good journal papers in a very reputed journals have been published. So some people have actually incorporate this motion model, human skin optical characters property models, and so on to perform different color mixing kind of techniques. Then you can have adaptive temporal selection. There are various ways to do that I have shown you one. You can have better blind source separation. These are few good directions where you can move forward to improve your system. And there are future research directions as well. So first one is incorporating prior knowledge. So this is what it means. So in my this recently published paper, what we have done is, let's say we have a complete video. What we do is we divide into different windows, and then we want to analyze each window to extract the heart rate. So now let's assume that you are looking at Tth window. So now, and in the previous time window, which is t minus 1, you know your heart rate is, let's say, 90. So 90 divided by 60 is 1.5. So this is the kind of spectrum that you have produced there. And now at Tth time frame, you get this kind of spectrum. So which says that your heart rate is quite, you can say, far apart from 90. But again, this heart rate fluctuations should not be so sudden. It shouldn't be the case that it suddenly jumps from from, let's say, 75 to 100 altogether. So we just utilize this notion, and we apply something known as Bayesian approach, which analyzes this thing that, okay, if you have this 1.5, so probably your output should be pretty much close, somewhat in the neighborhood of 1.5. So that kind of technique we use. So this is known as our prior knowledge that we have incorporated. Then people are using deep learning approaches to solve these different tasks in it, or have a end-to-end deep learning mechanism to solve this problem. So we will see in the upcoming slides few of those approaches. Some work has also been there on the on the compressed videos. Up till now, whatever I have told you, it's on uncompressed videos. Since the reason is we are looking for subtle changes. And if you just compress your videos, again, your small changes are the ones that are mostly affected and removed to compress the videos. Compressed video means you just use that video, remove those small changes, try to make more smooth as possible, so that you can represent it with small, you can say, number of variables. So that's why when I'm saying that with uncompressed videos, this is what I was saying, that with compressed videos, most of the subtle changes are affected. So some work is also going in that direction. And actually my work is in mainly improving this architecture for remote PPG estimation and improving its application areas. This is what actually I'm working on. So I think time is quite short, so let me just skip few of these slides. But yeah, as I was saying, in all these approaches, what we have done is we have different modules like ROI extraction, like temporal signal extraction, how we should mix the color. So can we make all these things automatically, that based on the data set everything goes on? That's where deep learning is used. So like here, there are these different tasks. So first is ROI detection. For that, a deep neural network is used. Then another one is denoising. So for that, something known as GAN is used. Again, an encoder-decoder network to denoise this thing. And some people have also used autoencoder for making this denoising thing. And then the last one is, you just have this time series signals, you just have these temporal signals, combine them to get the heart rate. So for that, again, a third CNN is used. So all these three networks are combined one after the other. This is what actually people are doing. In some cases, this ROI extraction is totally ignored, and only this denoising is used. So I think this, again, a very similar thing is again there. So you have this here what authors have done, extract out the ROI, consider different ROIs, extract out the temporal signals using average green channel. But after that, they want to provide it to the CNN, a 2D CNN, which will take up this as an image and provide the heart rate. So to do that, what they have done is they combine all those ROIs, they combine all those temporal signals, convert them into STFT, short time Fourier transform, which provides you 2D representation. Then they just gave that. So again, you can very well see that, yeah, it's a very quite recent paper published in Neurocomputing. That's what I was saying, that each of the steps, if you just understand it clearly, what exactly is the input, what exactly is the output, what is the purpose of that, then you can simply replace those things probably with deep learning for better results. But again, be cautious, because deep learning has this problem that its training is not that much straightforward. Now, I think, as I was saying, I was looking at multiple of its application areas. I'm just going to discuss two of its application areas really that I like the most and work more extensively in these domains, in these two domains. The first one is face anti-spoofing. To understand it, I think this what biometric and how this biometric is used for identification, matching, verification, everything is covered in the previous lectures by, I think, Dr. Anirban. But yeah, in a very simple words, what we have is, let's say we want to build a biometric face recognition system. So first we find out where is the face, then we extract some features out of it and store it in the database. So that's first step, known as registration. Then what happened is, if in the future this person, let's say, come up, you again gather its face, extract the features out of it, match these features with all the templates stored in the database, and then you will see whichever it matches to, you say that, okay, this is that person. So let's say this person template matches with this green one, you said, okay, this is the matching person and this is its identity. So that's a very simple face recognition system, right? So this, you have image, you have face recognition system, you find out what it is, and based on this, you grant the access of various, you can say, sophisticated items to that person, whatever he's destined to get. But usually what happened is, there is something known as face anti-spoofing. Alternatively, you can also set it like fooling the face recognition system. What you can do is, in the middle there is some adversary. It tries to fool the system by probably maybe giving the image of that genuine person and hide its identity. And then what happened is, only this image is recognized and an access is granted, but it's highly insecure. Just 1 second. हेलो आदित्य जी जी गुड मॉर्निंग। आई जी, मैं आपको आधे घंटे में कॉल कर रहा हूँ, एक्चुअली मैं मिडल ऑफ लेक्चर हूँ, सो अभी आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है? थैंक यू। हाँ जी। So that's face anti-spoofing. Now we want to stop this thing. So whenever this thing happens, sorry, this is face spoofing. So our face anti-spoofing, what it does is, it tries to stop this thing. It figures it out that, yes, someone tries to fool the system, so don't grant him the access. So that's face anti-spoofing. Face spoofing means spoofing the face and fooling the face recognition system. Face anti-spoofing means somehow stopping this thing. So there are various possible ways to do that. So like, you have this genuine person. In order to do that, what you can do is, you can use its image. Other one is, you can use its cut photo. I mean, these eye things, you cut its eye, even mouth as well, and then use its whatever remaining photograph. So this is known as eye cut photo. Other thing is, you can use its video or warped image also you can use. So these are the most frequently used face spoofing attacks. Probably you might be wondering why actually I have cut the photo. Well, see, you have this image. Now what you can do is, you can analyze whether there is any motion in this thing or not, to analyze whether it's a spoofed or not. In order to mitigate, again, it's like a dog and cat kind of thing. So once you have this kind of defense in place, what you can do is you can remove these eyes, blink the eyes from the behind to justify that yes, this person is actually moving and it's a genuine person. So these kind of different face anti-spoofing mechanisms we have, like analyzing the color, texture, motion, depth information, and to spoof them, we have different kind of face anti-spoofing mechanisms. And out of these, there is one which is the most strongest attack, which is known as 3D mask attack, and people are quite often use it now. So there are various, you can say, use cases for that. So now can we actually, and yeah, I'm also going to show you a video where these examples are shown. But can you somehow mitigate these 3D face mask attack? Can you somehow figure out that yes, a person is actually trying to attack the system? How you can do that? Well, one of the best possible strategy that one can use it here is something known as, something based on remote PPG or PPG extraction using non-contact face videos. So this is what we have actually seen. So what is the phenomena? What is the principle by which we can use it for face anti-spoofing? Well, the principle is simple. We have the skin, and as I was saying, that below the skin we have some nerves. So if we have this real thing, we can get the RPPG information from it. However, if somehow there is mask that obstructs this thing, then whatever information RPPG, this information that we are going to get, they are mainly noise. So our temporal signal in this case for face spoofing, sorry, they mainly contains noise and hardly any pulse information. This is the principle. So what you can now do is you can divide your face into different small patches and then figure it out the temporal signals out of it. Then as we have said, if there is real face, so all those temporal signals contains pulse signal along with small noise. However, if there is mask, then all these areas, these different patches, whatever temporal signal we get from them, they provide us mainly the noise rather than pulse signal. So that's why what you can do is you can use the correlation between these temporal signals. In case of real face, this correlation should be high. Why? Because most of them, most of the information that they contains are or is pulse signal information. But if you have a face mask, then most of these information, they are noisy. And in that scenario, and in that case, the correlation between these different temporal signals are low. That's the intuition that people have used. So here they just have these extract out these temporal signals from different regions, then find out the correlation model between them and give it to the classifier to figure out whether a person is spoofed or not. And on this strategy, lots and lots of different algorithms are actually based. So yeah, that's face anti-spoofing. Second one is facial micro expressions. So what they are, let's see that as well. So now let me just provide you some demo images, demo videos to actually explain this face anti-spoofing, facial micro expression, and few more concepts that we have seen. So let's first see that how face anti-spoofing data sets will look like. So this is something from the dataset known as 3D MAD. So on the left we have real face, on the right we have spoofed face. Now you can very well imagine that yes, these actually looks quite similar to the the spoofed face looks quite similar to the real face, having all the some similar appearances, eye motions, even mouth movements, and so on. Right. So that's why it's not that much a trivial problem. Now let me also give you a demo of facial microexpression, what they are. Yep. So usually expressions are perceived as either micro expressions or micro expressions. Macro expressions are what we are actually dealing with. We are pretty much used to that. And there is something known as micro expressions, which people actually don't want to show on their face. They try to hide it, but somehow for a very short duration, that persists on your face. So to actually understand it, let's look at this video. And now I request you to please look this video closely and tell me what expression this person has on his face, how he's feeling. Yep. Yep. What was the expression? Anyone wants to try?
Sad?
Mm-hmm. Sad?
Yes.
Okay. Any anything else? Any more expression that anyone wants to try? Okay, why sad?
Because his face is means facing downwards.
Okay. So now look once again.
Or serious it may be.
Okay. So now in this video, I have shown you some bounding box, which probably you should see to figure it out what expression it has. Now what I'm going to show you is that just as I was saying, micro expression persists for a very short duration, mainly 1/3 or 1/5 of a second. And that too for a very subtle, not only for subtle duration, but also the impact is quite small as well. I mean, these are not that much like if we are laughing, everything looks that, yeah, we have teeth and all. These things are not there. So very small changes are there on the face. Now, I just show you that clip, but I just extracted out that few instances, few frames from it, where this micro expression was there, and move it slowly 5 times. Now, can you tell me what kind of expression it is?
He's amazed or something after seeing something.
That's true. So, but how you figure it out? Well, his eyebrow is goes up down, right? So this is what micro expression is. And in lie detection, this micro expression once again plays a very crucial role. So this is what micro expressions are, and in order to do that, you can use RPPG, because when these things are going on, your PPG signal also changes. So this is one of my work that I have shown. So that's actually, I mean, there is this deformation and so on. So these kind of things we can analyze. So this is what we have used in facial micro expression detection or facial micro expression recognition. There is this thing previously what people are using. Simultaneously, we also proposed this new pipeline which we can incorporate to get better ME spots and better information. Yep, any doubt? Okay. So now few more things probably I was discussing. So let's see those things as well. So when I was talking about adaptive temporal selection, so there I have discussed that, yeah, let's say we have this face. On this face, we find out our ROIs. From those ROIs, we can neglect some of the ROIs to get better results. So what kind of, I mean, this video is now just going to provide an example for that. So there is this video, input video. We find out the face from it. We extract out the face from it. Find out multiple ROIs from it. Few of those are shown here in red and green. Amongst that, we find out what are those signals that we can discard. Again, based on your confidence value. What was that? Standard deviation divided by mu. So now, whatever signals we are going to get, they are pretty much stable. And these red one, which have high CI values, they are somewhat unstable. Reason you can very well see that lips are quite moving. Right. Second thing that I was telling while I was discussing about improving efficacies is we can use face alignment for better HR estimation or monitoring. The reason, let's say we are focusing on some ROI, but somewhat our face was moving slightly. So then what happened is there is ROI shifting. So if we can just somewhat use face registration, those things will be aligned and we may get better result. Again, we may. So this is the example for that. So here we have this original video. This is what I get after face alignment. Actual HR or ground truth HR heart rate is 80. If I just use the original video, I'm going to get this kind of spectrum, and my predicted value is 110. However, if I just use this aligned thing, aligned faces, then I'm going to get this kind of spectrum, and my prediction is quite accurate, 80 only. But this face addition not always works. Mostly I find out that it provides me erroneous result. The problem is there with my face registration. Again, whatever face registration I have used, it's the state-of-the-art face recognition system. Again, for that purpose, I use OpenFace library. So the face registration works in this manner: that you have the face, you find out where are the eyes, then you find out the eye centers, and then you normalize the distance between them. Now let me show you where it fails. So there is an example where it fails. Here we have the input video. Here I am showing the face registration result. The actual one is 85. The predicted one when I use input is 95. But when I use this face registration, the predicted one is 124. Again, new pulse. Actually, I mean a new peak has been introduced here. What exactly goes wrong here? Just look at the result and you may figure it out. If you won't, we will discuss it. Yep. So what goes wrong here? Can anyone tell me? Okay. So exactly what happens is whenever a person is blinking the eye, the track of eye centers, it's somewhat lost, and due to which we will see that somewhat erroneous kind of face registration has occurred. So just analyze it once again. You just see whenever a person blinks, what happens. Right. So these are probably a few things, few videos that probably may provide you something much more relevant things. Again, I also have one more video that I can show you. This is what I mean. This how OpenFace works up. Because I think we have seen the image registration and its problems. I think first modeling we have not discussed, but yeah, HR tracking. So here there is lots of, you can say, deformations in the face, and that's why this kind of red kind of things we are actually getting. I mean, this is our proposed one, and this is the ground truth. So deformation is really a lot, but once we use this HR tracking, or you can say the prior information, we are somewhat getting better and better results. Again, this is actually not that much if you look closely. The difference of them between would be very small, something just like 1 or 2 BPM. That too for a very short things. Again, similarly, we have lots and lots of these things results, like how HR tracking definitely improves. Here also you will see the difference is quite small. Here we have just used regression rather than this. So mainly the similar one. So yeah. So now if anyone has any question, so please ask me. Yep. Any question? Okay. I think if Vaibhav?
Yes, yes, please, sir.
Yeah. So I think there is no question. So
Participants, if you have any doubt or you can ask your question. Okay. So thank you, Puneet sir, for your means a very informative lecture on this heart rate monitoring, non-contact heart rate monitoring. So thank you so much from IET DAVV and from the entire team of FDP program for your means innovative. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. See you. Bye.
So participants, the quiz is, sorry, the poll is there, and also the Google Meet, Google form is there for your attendance. So as of now, only 89 participants has responded for this Google form. So please complete your Google form for attendance and please participate in the poll also. Madam Kirti Pawar has raised his hand. Yes, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, sir. Mistakenly, I have done that.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So any participants have any doubt? So you please contribute in this poll and also for this Google attendance form. And the next session will start with the 12 past 10. We have next speaker from Triple IT Hyderabad, Sanjeev Chaudhary sir. So Kirti ma'am, you are going to handle that session, na?
Yeah, sir. Sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
So have you participated in the poll also?
Pardon, sir?
Have you participated in poll activity?
Yeah, I have already submitted
Okay.
both the things. Thank you.
Yeah. So those who have submitted the poll activity in the Google form, they can leave now, and we'll join at 12 past 10 again for the next session, the session 2.